Hi, Paul Thompson here from Spitfire Audio. I'm very excited today to show you SSO Symphonic Extras. This is made from 7 libraries that we recorded in the hall that we use as alternative sounds for some typical orchestral instruments, but also some fabulous organic sound design created by 2 incredible percussionists, Frank Ricotti and Paul Clavis. This is now collecting those libraries together, giving them the new skin, but as you can see, they use exactly the same miking setup as SSO, and therefore they make the perfect companion. Let's dive straight in and I'll show you some of these incredible instruments. So this is the Aluphone, a series of aluminium bells mounted on a rig. It's really, really beautiful. It can obviously be used as an alternative for all kinds of orchestral instruments, such as the Glock, the Celeste. You can actually create all kinds of different sounds with this. So we've got the soft beater loaded up, but also short notes with the soft beater as well. And we're just listening to the tree mic at the moment, but you've got our usual collection of mics. So if I just focus on the close mic, so you can hear what this sounds like close up. And of course, we have a hard beater option as well. And if we go to the long version, I'm going to put the outriggers up as well as the tree. Really fabulous sound. Not only that, we've got the bowed sound. And the shorts. And finally, the beautiful sound of the fingers only. Totally ethereal and otherworldly, incredibly useful sound there. So let's move through in alphabetical order. The next up is the Cymbalom. Now, as you can see, you have pedal control. So the sustain pedal switches between the pedal down and pedal up samples. So with the pedal up, you get that very short, percussive, muted sound. Now, as you can hear, we've got the close mics up and you can hear the beautiful spread of the sound just mic'd really close up to the soundboard. This Cymbalom was played by Greg Knowles, who's played on many film scores such as The Hunger Games. Absolutely beautiful instrument and really fabulous performance. And as you can see, if you push the dynamics to the top, you get this naturally played tremolo, or you can just play it on the keyboard. But sometimes this is a really nice effect because it gives you that extra layer of reality. And that's dynamic controllable. And then as you release the pedal, it triggers a note off to give you a nice solid end. So apologies for my cod harpsichord music, but I think you get the idea. This is a fabulous instrument performed by Stephen Devine, his own Baroque harpsichord, beautifully maintained. It's got all kinds of different sounds and we recorded it in a lot of detail. So here is the low keyboard. The high. Both of those combined. Now, you also have doubling. So the high with the 8 and the 4 gives you an extra octave on the high keyboard and then the low keyboard coupled just at the root. You've got the high 4, so just the upper octave with the high keyboard and the low 8. And then 2 buffered, which is almost like a kind of way of muting the harpsichord. It gives a really lovely kind of crisp sound. So a wide variety of sounds there. And if we just listen to the close mic, sounds really great up close as well. It's such a rich sound. Now, where would you use this? Well, even if you're not really looking to write a harpsichord piece, this is incredibly useful to substitute in for the harp and the piano. And I sometimes use it especially for some of these low notes. When you sync them into the orchestra, they've got a really strong punch, but you can't totally hear the overtone, so you can't necessarily immediately lock onto it and say, that's a harpsichord. But it's that kind of, I don't know, say basso continuo, I guess. It's that kind of, figuring of the bass can kind of help you move chords around. It's really useful down there. And of course, sometimes adding it to a kind of high string ostinato can be really good. You get the idea. It's really, really fabulous for all that kind of stuff. And then even, that combined with harp also sounds really fantastic. You get the two contrasting sounds that lock together really beautifully. Of course, if you were going to do that within the context of the orchestra, you'd probably just use a distant mic. I would use the outriggers. You get the idea. All that kind of stuff works really, really well. So next up in our alphabetical odyssey, HG2O. So this is the Waterphone. Now, this is presented in a number of different ways. So we've got traditional kind of Waterphone sounds with loads and loads of different performances. You're never going to recognize that Waterphone sound like we'll have so many times. This has got a huge variety, and with the mics as well, you can control exactly what the sound is like. But also, it has these amazing versions that are playable over the keyboard. So we've taken the tine noise, got a really good one, and then spread it across the keyboard. So let me give you a couple of examples. First up, just traditional stuff. Now you can hear here that we can control whether the water is moving or not. Now, piano style. So good. It's just a crazy, crazy kind of sound. You've got the bowed stuff, of course. And then in the plucked sounds, and as you can see, you can vary the amount of kind of water in there and crossfade between those. One of the things that I've always tried to make sure of when I'm thinking about the design of an instrument and the way that we're going to record it is to give as much control as possible. So, and by that, I don't just mean lots of different options for you to pick from, but also lots of control that you can do in real time. So you've got all of this level of control in here. There's really no need for you to necessarily immediately lock onto the sound and go, oh, Waterphone, and kind of dismiss it. There's lots and lots of different alternative ways of using this. And because of the beautiful acoustic of AIR Studios, you know, you can really go to town and have this stuff kind of floating around in the room and just bring such a fantastic organic sound to your sound design. And to, you know, bringing this kind of stuff into a piece that you're writing with orchestra is really, really useful, because this is the kind of stuff that sets stuff apart. It's the way that you are adding all these little layers and different sounds and things to catch your ear. And of course, you've got the close mic as well. So you've got all of those great sounds of the player. You know, you can really hear the movement of the instrument, the kind of hands-on. You can just either go for a super washy way back in the hall, or you can have this kind of really close detail. Let's move on. The Plucked piano. So this one, performed by yours truly, has a great selection of different options. You can either play with velocity or you can play using CC. You've got the direct signal into Pro Tools, but you've also got a tape signal as well. So if I put that on and we just have a listen, let's put the outriggers in, but let's balance it more in favour of the close mics. So you can hear you've got all that width, but also if you just want to go for the super ambient sound. This again is an incredibly useful alternative for things. So personally, I love the pounding the bass out on this, and also there's a really good cool effect that you can do if you tune it down. And we almost end up with something that's kind of akin to the tonality of the harp. It's like changing the formant of the piano, but giving you, you know, a different kind of voice colour in a sense. So I use this all over the place. I use it sometimes alternative to the harp. Similarly to the harpsichord, I sometimes use it to double things like. Sometimes for harp-like gestures. To give you that, you know, that kind of textural colour. Very, very useful again. Now we're into the scraped sounds. Now, this library was originally called Scraped Percussion, and it has these cymbals, these glass, and then the various category, which we'll go into in a second. But again, it's got all of these fabulous kind of I don't need to really dig in any further. I think you can hear what's going on. A sound that you don't hear very often, actually, the cymbal with that kind of grinding from the stick, from a, you know, just a normal drumstick. There's also the Super Ball in there, which has got all that kind of classic stuff. And bowed tam tam. And if I sweep this along so you can see all that kind of stuff. I mean, let me just show you a few more. Got the close mic in there. So you can vary again using the mics. There's a ton of stuff in here you can see. Played with a triangle, actually. That's a cool one. So some lovely stuff in there. And then in the glass section, we have, let's set up a mix. Short ones. So some really lovely stuff in there. And then in our various, wow, look at all this stuff. Some really interesting stuff here. So bowing a bicycle wheel. Some cool stuff. Polystyrene cup. Actually, put the close mics and the outriggers in. Super Ball with the saw. So really interesting and different varied textures there. Some of them have more metallic sounds. Some of them are, yeah, undefinable. I mean, a polystyrene cup. Fantastically unpleasant. Right, that takes us to the final part of the library, which is the steel drums. Now, the inspiration for this was Cliff Martinez's fantastic score for Solaris. And the idea was, you know, most people know and love the sound of the steel drum, but what can you do with it in the hall at AIR Lyndhurst? And the answer is, if you take the top layer as being the kind of full ring out with all the beautiful harmonics in there, and then think about how you might damp that down. And rather than just playing it more quietly, you damp the harmonics as well. So you get the idea. There's a couple of different layers in there. Let's take the cello pan, and I'll show you just on that one pan. And you can hear that as we get quieter, the harmonics drop because it's being damped on the actual drum itself. Now that gives you the opportunity to do those beautiful and you can really set up this kind of interesting texture with movement where you're sometimes poking out all the harmonics. And when you put this through delay, it really works well. And if you have a listen to my demo on the product page, you'll hear that in effect. I'm using these different dynamics to feature the sound sometimes and then just bring it back down to this kind of bubbling sort of texture. And also, let's have a look at the lead pan. And there you've got that fabulously soft, let's put a few more mics up. You've got this beautifully soft small beater cello pan. And back to the ensemble. So it's really lovely. It takes really well to reverb. And of course, we've got some fabulous rolls in here as well that are controlled by the dynamics. And using these, focusing on those lower kind of textures, it again gives you something that's really lovely. It's a sound that you recognize, but in that kind of context where you're just kind of using this as a chord generator. You know, you don't totally know what it is, but it's just such a beautiful texture. So these sounds, these 7 libraries that are now combined into Symphonic Extras: the Aluphone, the Grand Cymbalom, the Harpsichord, the Waterphone, the Plucked piano, scraped percussion, and the steel drums. A super wide palette of sound, real organic sound design. Alternatives for standard instruments. There's all kinds of different ways you can use these. I'm always taking these sounds, pitching them up and down, messing around with them, chuck loads of reverb on, compress them, add bass underneath. They're just brilliant. They're so malleable that you can do all kinds of different things with them. It's an absolute encyclopedia of interesting sound design stuff that you can add to any orchestral library. Of course, they go really well with SSO because they're recorded with the same miking techniques in the hall, so you can place them really easily. But also, you know, it's just a super library of really great, interesting, characterful sounds that you can use to make your music sound slightly different. So I hope you enjoyed that walkthrough. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.